Hi, welcome to Meta Interview with Klara Kopi. Today I'm here with Clarian, one of the co-creators of Tamago. We're going to have a lot of fun in this interview.
Awesome.
Hi, Clarian, how are you?
Hi. I'm fine. Thank you for having me for this interview.
Oh, thank you for coming. You honor me.
The honor is all mine. How are you doing today?
Great. It's hot in here. I'm doing fine.
You can turn a fan.
What? Sorry?
Would you turn a fan, like a big fan, or would it be too loud to edit it if you have?
Oh no, yeah, I have AC on because the fan will be crazy because I'm using my cell phone as a webcam. I don't have a webcam. So it catches all the sounds that I have around me.
Oh, fancy. I like it. Okay.
So let's start. So first things first, please tell us a bit about your background. Where did you come from? Remarkable events in your life, your career choices, anything you feel that led you to where you are today?
That's quite a loaded question, Klara.
I'm sorry, I can break it up. Where did you come from? Your background. Tell us what you used to tell people.
Yeah.
Feel comfortable.
Okay. I was born in outer space with a monkey in my face, and those are lyrics of the song. I'm from Canada, from Montreal, in Canada. Yeah. And then I also grew up in New York. So, so I've kind of like a Canada and in the United States back and forth when I was a kid. And then when I was about 21 years old, I started traveling for a living, working at studios, working for artists, working at festivals, a lot of stuff in music, and did that kind of stuff for a while. So I did that for about 12 years, and I lived in a lot of different places. You know, I lived in Berlin, Chicago, LA. I spent a lot of time living in Mexico, and then traveling in South America, going in Asia, all the continents that I was very fortunate to spend those years traveling. And because of that, I never really identified, I kind of lost the plot in terms of how do I feel like my identification of where I come from? Because I was so much more focused. I've always been more focused on where I am and where I'm going has always been more interesting to me than where I'm from, if that makes sense. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like awesome. It must be like a dream, traveling all this time and meeting all these different cultures. Did it have an effect on your production as a musician?
Yeah, definitely. It is to be able to travel is amazing. To live today in a time where we can travel to different cultures, because I do like to think about it like compared to the Middle Ages, or compared to, times where if you wanted to go from A to B, it could take you a long time, on a boat. Even the Industrial Revolution, like with airplanes, you can fly. Of course, now we're much more conscientious about how we spend our emissions, right, when we travel. But even barring traveling, the ability for us to connect right now on a Zoom meeting, that you're in Brazil and I'm in New York, that's traveling. Like, we are traveling. In my mind, we're traveling right now. That's why the metaverse is so exciting and interesting. And so I would just say overall, I would kind of put it like, to live in a time where interconnectivity is prevalent and accessible for people, that has a huge influence on my feeling of what people are like, what cultures are like. And then in turn, because it opens my eyes to different types of ways of living, different types of people out there, such as yourself. And then in turn, that also then affects my overall outlook on what it is to be alive, to exist on this planet with other people, to share the space. And then how I make music, or how I work, or make technology, or whatever I do, it has an impact, because then it makes me more conscientious, more aware of this planet, which otherwise I think, I'm in my early 30s, but when I was a kid, there was no internet for a while.
Yeah.
That's a weird concept. Imagine no internet.
Yeah, I'm 35.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just laughing. Like, imagine for a kid today that's 10 years old, it'd be like, what? Or just imagine now. Imagine if somebody came up to you right now and said, "There's no internet. It's gone. Like, it's gone. Like, oh, like what? What's gonna happen, right?" But yeah, so. But like that, I guess the dichotomy there is sort of interesting because then, I do have the juxtaposition of thinking to myself, if I wanted to know what like somebody in France is doing, I'd have to write a letter, or like whatever. You watch something on television, which is very much catered to, give you a message that's going to be in a specific frame. But the ability to have a Zoom call, that's a game changer because then that really does, things like that, streaming. So, it definitely plays a major factor, I think, for me in terms of my outlook and like the way I see the world, the way I see the world.
Awesome. Very deep thoughts.
Deep thought. That's because like Wednesday afternoon you caught me during deep mode. Deep Wednesdays.
I like it. I love it. I love having deep conversations. It makes us think. Well, but
it's a facade because like it's only for an hour on Wednesdays that I get into deep mode to make up for like the other 6 days where it's all surface. It's all surface thought.
You can't be deep all the time. You will go crazy.
You'll drown.
Oh my God! I'm being a great philosopher, thinking about life and the world and everything else. I'm you. What are we?
No, I know. Wait, those questions are very, it's funny because I don't know, that there's a downside to technology and that it captures your attention constantly in order to figure out how it works, figure out what you're doing with it and figure out where it's going. And it's kind of fundamentally though, like, why do we even do anything, right? Like when we're building these technologies, we put necessity on the value of the technology based on its utility, essentially. Yeah. And utility comes down to basic instincts. It comes down to survival, right? Our ability to see, well, what helps us to survive? What helps us to survive collectively, individually? And so inherently, you think technology then should be, it should just be right there on that base value with those fundamental questions, like who we are and why are we the way we are. But yet it doesn't answer those questions, right? Like, you can get a DNA exam and you can be like, oh, no, and it like be thought provoking, but then we still have those questions. But what does it mean? Who are we? And that is philosophy. And philosophy it's something that I think like the Greeks in the Western world, I think thinking about like back to the Western world, like they thought the ancient or like I guess the ancient Greeks would be the predecessors or ancestors of Western civilization, which has, influenced the world, I guess, right now to where we are today on different levels. But when I think about those Greek philosophers, when you were saying, oh, I'm a great philosopher and I'm just thinking about philosophy and I'm sitting around thinking about who I am, that's like when I think about Plato, right? Or like, you think about like Aristotle sitting around being like postulating things, right? Like, ooh, like what is the meaning of, and we kind of laugh at that, but for them, the importance of the philosopher was very, very valid in terms of society, running the society. And those values, those fundamentals are still very, very much, I think like in blockchain, for example, or when you look at technologies, you don't just look at what the utility is, you also look at the philosophical value of it in terms of the fundamentals, right? Like the terms and conditions which affect us as beings in terms of our lifestyle. And it gets philosophical, right? It gets metaphysical. It's not always, utility isn't always 100% functional, I think is what I'm saying. Like, it's not always 100% like, oh, here's a fork and you can use it to eat things with, or like, here's an app to park your car. It's like, yeah, okay, there's that, but then there's more to it than just that, I think, because then how was the fork made? How was this car app made? How do you use it? Where does that go? Where do those resources go? Is that value transparent? Is it not transparent? And these questions like transparency, the democratization of assets, use cases, you shine a big light onto these onto these philosophical thoughts, let's say these philosophical notions, once you start moving into, the deeper fundamental questions. And I think blockchain and technology, there's a relation.
Decentralization, how does it all, well, let me just, I'm loving the conversation, but you said you don't have a lot of time. So let's come back here. No, I'm loving it. But yeah, I just don't want to waste your time, but not being able to do the questions.
Circular logic is something that like you don't want to put me in, because then it's like a carousel, and like I won't even know. I'll be talking to myself for 12 hours, and then you're gonna have to be like call somebody.
No problem. So next question. How was your transition from your previous work area to Web3 and blockchains?
Yeah, so I don't really see it as a transition personally, because for me, well, I guess into blockchain specifically, yeah, but in general, the internet for me is inherently decentralized, and music is also, to an extent, decentralized in the way that it's like an audio wave, like it's propagated into the air, and then, that gets distributed and everyone can hear it, and they're all decentralized when they're listening to it. So, and then the internet, when in its initial conception, right, it's a network. It's decentralized. You have computers everywhere that are processing information. What centralizes it is when you have these big companies that come in and then, create gatekeeping. So they'll say, well, yeah, you used to be able to access this for free, but if you come through us, you have to pay for it, but it's better because we've packaged it in such a way where we promise we're going to give you this, 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 and this. And then, in the beginning, it was actually much more decentralized, but now it's come to a point where you have these huge companies, like Google is huge, massive, Meta, or Facebook or whatever. I don't know, like Meta, but, so in my mind, all these concepts have been like, they're always, I love science fiction. So William Gibson,
me too.
These guys, Philip K. Dick, these guys were thinking of like cyber networks and things like that. Networks that are inherently decentralized because you have information being passed from multiple different areas and then kind of accumulating into one. Me working in music, it's also very cyberpunk. The stuff that I make is pretty electronic. The things that I'm into is pretty weird and underground personally in terms of music spaces. Also, like, share a lot of the fundamentals. Those fundamentals are, privacy protection, interoperability, transmission of data in ways that can like kind of surface through weird kind of areas and produce different types of results that people can then take and use in different communities. The way that the music industry, when we talk about community, it's really interesting because community is one of these words that you hear a lot in the blockchain space. People are always like community. It's interesting because in like rave culture or in like indie rock culture, community is everything. They don't say community. You just are, right? It's just like, and it's like, it's more of like a kind of weirder, I don't know. I'd say it's like, it's less nerdier, like, right? Like with blockchain community, it's a lot of nerds that are kind of like, all right, like, okay, so how are we going to go do this, and this? And like, they use the word community. Sometimes it's used appropriately. Sometimes I get a little bit cringy with that term because then it's like, they talk about community and values, but it's really like a bunch of people shilling something or taking something, creating a bureaucratic approach, and then like delegating all these different forms, which are then, just materialistically, it's like, okay, what's really happening is that people are taking a step back, but they're still pulling the strings and delegating at different levels. And then that kind of format of community, not so great. What I love about Mirror is that I do get a bit of a resonance of a community vibe that's like dorky, but honest. And like, really, you can tell that there's some people in there that really do want to have this decentralized, that's true to these values. And are resisting the pull, because there's going to be a pull no matter what. The second you're worth millions or billions of dollars, you're going to have lawyers up the wazoo being like, all right, time to do this, time to do that, time to do that. And of course you have to, like, you know, if you want to be adopted on a mass level, you need to be considerate of the fact that now you're treading in a different type of ocean or a different type of jungle that you were in before. So you have to adapt, but at the same time, you have to be careful of the traps. So yeah, community. And to answer your question, it's kind of like, for me, yeah, like there's really no transition. Like it's all sort of, for me, part of the same fundamentals. And what I really care about is not the branding of the labels. I'm not much for like the labels and the terminologies, but really, what are we doing and who am I working with? Like, who are the people that I'm working with and what are we doing? And then it's the actions that really count. And I think actions really count, because then you do things, right? You talk about it, and then you do things. And then if you do things that you like, you feel good. And if you do things you don't like, you try to make adjustments. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it in terms of Web3 or Web2, blockchain and the internet and those kinds of things. I kind of look at it more like, I don't really care for being part of Web3 or blockchain. What I care for are any types of solutions that blockchain or Web3 concepts can offer that will help people to have, you know, a better type of experience, whether it's going to be artists. In my case, it's musicians and artists. I'm making a music app. So I want to create something using the solutions that are proposed and then test to see that those solutions really work. You know, like, don't take it at face value, try them out. And then if they work, great, build on them. And if they don't, then try to offer, you know, ways to improve them.
I'm very excited to see what you're building. I've been, me and Becopro live together. So I'm always seeing Tama Island and all you have been doing. And it all seems great. And the platform looks awesome. It's pretty, it's organized, you can find everything there. We are thinking about a music project, and he's all excited to launch it, to show you guys.
Nice.
It's going to be great.
I'd love to see it. Becopro is the best, you know, like Becopro, without Becopro, Tama Island would be, it's like missing a kidney. Like, or there's an eye, like Tama Island's like a body and Becopro is like an eyeball. And it's kind of like, Becopro is more like the eyes that are watching Tama Island though, right? So it's like the
his eyes up there.
Yeah, and we love his videos, and yeah, it's great to have him part of it.
Yeah, I loved it too. I can talk for him because he loved it. What do you think of DAOs? Tell us a bit about the ones you're involved with. I have been saying that you want to turn Tama Island in a DAO.
Yeah, well, okay, so there's a few things I have to say about DAOs. I mean, where would I start? Like, okay, I look at DAOs in like three different ways. I see the use case for DAO on a transactional way. And then I see, because that it has this transactional way, like as a multi-sig wallet, essentially. So because you have this ability to have multiple people that are then assigned onto a signature wallet in which you can see exactly where the tokens are coming and then make propositions as to what you want to do with that. What you do is you create a system that's transparent and a way to decentralize a bank account, right? So I see like it's like a decentralized bank account, and it's very, very interesting. Like, it sounds, maybe from, if you haven't used a DAO before, or you're not sure about what that stuff is, it might sound like, okay, so you just have a bunch of people sharing a bank account, like what's the big deal? But when you actually start to use it, and then you have to engage with other people, and then you realize the power to actually engage with the community, to reflect what's happening, to have proposals come in, to build a community around DAOs, it gets very interesting. It does get really interesting on that level, because then you think to yourself, well, it's more than just a multi-sig wallet. The potential with DAOs can go into all types of governance. You know, it can be an outreach into, political. It can go into law. It can go into many different facets, for good and for bad, though, right? It's just a tool at the end of the day. So yeah, there's things that I like about it, and then things that are like, but it's a tool. At the end of the day, I think DAOs are still in. They kind of blew up because it's like tech. You got like a term, and then people start to catch on. You have an interesting technology, it's useful, and then boom, it explodes. Like NFTs, everyone like NFTs. Last year it was NFTs. This year it's DAOs, right? It's like DAOs. And people like are making DAOs for NFTs, like NFT DAO. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not a DAO evangelist, but I do see the benefit in using a DAO for community engagement, as well as to decentralize funds for projects, which is very useful for many different things, and so that's what we're doing. So for Tama Island, I like the idea, and this is the thing also with Tamago, I want things to be as decentralized as possible, right? Like I want to remove myself as much as I can, remove any of the founders, any of the members we should always continue to reduce our ability to sway any kind of majority of actions from the most smallest level to the largest level. That's the idea. I like that. So I'm trying to pursue that as an experiment to take it as far as we can go. So in my mind, one thing I really don't like about Spotify is that, they have curated playlists that they have Spotify employees or Spotify partners that then get like algorithmic boosts to get millions of plays. And that's controlling the airwaves. That's propaganda. That's not that's very centralized, So how do you avoid that pitfall? I think what you do is something like, for example, if people want to do events on Tama Island, then I should not be a part of the decision process of what happens and what doesn't happen on a majority level. So by creating a DAO, what you do is then you let the community come in, and then they can start to propose value. And then that value can then be reflected back by the same community. So you actually get the community to not only engage, but then you get the community to decide on that engagement whether or not their ideas are interesting and worth pursuing. And then our job really is to be stewards of that. It's to be stewards to ensure that it's happening, that it's moving forward with as much limited ability to interfere as possible. Reduce as much the ability for us to interfere as possible with that. And so by making Tama Island a DAO, we do that. In my mind, there's a lot of it's a positive thing to do. Otherwise, it becomes it becomes a Clarian party, whatever Clarian wants. Doing Tama Island, and I would love to see it grow into something like that. So
it's going to be great. I think it's going to be awesome. It's looking great.
Thank you. Yeah, we just keep doing it, and it's a good way for people. It's good for two things. It's good because it allows Jeff and the Metaverse guys on NearHub to work on developing the platform, so it gets better and better. So they optimize things, they try things, and then it's good for us because then we see how people interact on there, and then it gives me ideas. Because what I want to do is take Tamago and virtualize the entire platform. I want the entire platform available on Tama Island in 3D, because I think that, again, 3D is the future of the internet. Everything's going to be 3D. And so I want to I like, experimenting. So I want to see how we can do that and be, doing it. The great thing about doing something new before too many people have done it, the bad thing is that you don't have much reference, right? So you often make a lot of mistakes, and you often fall on your own sword. But the good thing is that you feel free. There's this excitement because you're free and you can just try things, because this knowledge comes with the price of freedom, in a sense, because I think the more knowledge you have, then the more conscientious you are of things. And then that maybe limits your ability to it's harder to break through your knowledge to find something new, because that knowledge will constantly be there. And in some ways, it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because in some ways, the knowledge can take you to a new place, but in another way, knowledge can also put up a wall from you to see through something. If you're, if you fall into that trap where, if you have a technology here, this is kind of vague, but let's get more specific so I can make this point come across clearly. If you, for example, I don't know, let's say you want to build an application that can check the weather, right? Like a weather app, right? So a weather app, like you'll tell me, Clarian, like, why are you building a weather app? That's going to be the first question you probably have. Is like, there's enough weather apps out there. It's like, why are you building a weather app? So is he building a weather app because he wants to learn how to make a weather app? That's probably why he's doing it, right? Because any type of weather app that you can think of probably exists. And then when if I were to build a weather app, what would be my first instinct? Google, how do I build a weather app, right? And you're going to get like all these articles, GitHub, and you're like, oh, I could fork this, I could go on YouTube, and all that knowledge exists, and that's great. But all that knowledge actually, in a way, limits us, in my opinion, from building a weather app differently, because then everybody builds the weather app based off of the most popular GitHub repositories, based off of the most popular YouTube videos, the most popular articles that, you know, the Google crawlers send you to. And so you have the same type of structure over and over and over again, tried and true. And that reduces the ability for innovation, in my opinion, on the weather app, primarily because of how much knowledge there is and how much is there and how much availability. So I don't know, maybe that can kind of like help to clarify that idea. So when you try to do a technology like, okay, well, how do I build a weather app that tells me the weather constantly on Venus, right? Now that gets a little bit more weird, right? A little bit niche. So if you Google, how do I build a weather app to show me the weather on Venus, you're going to get probably things that have no correlate. You know, most of the search is just going to be random stuff, you know, maybe you'll have like a NASA API that shows you the weather on Venus, but there you go. It's like a puzzle. It's a clue. It's a puzzle clue. That's all it is, right? The knowledge is limited. Because the knowledge is limited, it's up to you. Because it's up to you, you have to sit down now and you have to schematically come up with an entire way to build something, right? Now, what you could do is say, hey, I'm going to go check out how do I build a weather app for planet Earth, because I know that already exists. So you can Google that, then get that, and then reflect a model based off of that model to build a weather app on Venus, okay? And that will give you a level of knowledge, but still that level of knowledge now there's like a layer of abstraction that's removed from what you're doing. And because you have that layer of abstraction, you have this freedom, that freedom to do things in a different way. And you don't know it. It's not conscious, but if you move forward in that direction, who knows? Maybe you're going to come up with something very innovative, which can then go back to all weather apps and cause an innovation, you know? And so all that is to kind of say, why am I so excited about building on Tama Island virtual stuff?
Yeah,
it's because it's not a lot of that. Like Spotify doesn't have a virtual Spotify, or Audius doesn't have a virtual Audius. That's like, you know, there's no like Google how to do that. And so that's what's cool and exciting. And I think it's worth pursuing. When you find things like that you're passionate about, that you're excited about, and there's not a lot of, it's a big, you know, green light for me. Yeah.
So you want to get Tamago to be more than a streaming platform. You want to build a 3D experience, this platform, and turn into a 3D experience. Is that it?
Yeah. Well, I guess yes and no. Like you're right about the fact that I want to make a 3D experience, but it's still a streaming platform. Like I don't want it to be something else.
You want to get the two of them working together, cooperating.
Yes, everything you can do in 2D, you can do in 3D. That's the future of the internet. Like the entire internet is going to be in 3D. Like this whole 2D structure in 10 years from now, people are going to be laughing. They're going to be like, oh, imagine, like that was so annoying. It's like when you yeah, exactly. It's like using punch codes for coding, you know, like in the future, it makes sense. It really does make sense in my mind. I see it pretty clearly. So that's very exciting for me to try to build that, and for Jeff. And yeah, so we're working on it.
Congratulations. It seems like an awesome project.
Thank you.
Crazy to see it.
Yeah, well, Tama Island's already there. So we're going to be dropping, the first thing you're going to see is the embedding. So we're going to have virtual versions of the tracks. Then the second thing is the NFTs. So you're going to have record boxes of the NFTs that you can actually trade on platform and on Tama Island. And then, and then there's a lot of other things I'm thinking about putting the social stuff on chain, but that does cause other complications. But it would be really cool to see liking and disliking virtualized. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Why did you choose Near to build it? Well, why do you think that Near would be a great place to do that?
Yeah, I think I answered that question before when I was talking about with music, you know, like I don't know, or did I answer it with you or did I talk to someone? I think I did. No, I did with the community.
Your protocol. Yeah, the community.
Yeah, because the community is a really big deal. I think I really like Near's community ecosystem, the feeling of it that I get. Yeah, and the people who kind of the stewards behind it, like you can tell there's a genuine, at least on the like on the foundation side of things. I haven't met everybody, but like a few of the people that have helped Tamago to push the project, like the Human Guild. I mean, yeah, they're amazing. Like those guys are like, they're pretty legit. Like that's pretty, like you can tell it's like super legit. They want to build decentralized solutions and they want to see them succeed. Whereas like Solana, no offense to Solana, but I don't think Solana cares. Solana's pretty like upfront, like, yo, this is like going to be the craziest, coolest, whatever, you know, and they want to put something like, it's just like a different vibe that I get, which is not as much more what I'm so, for community values, I think it's harder to kind of come up from nowhere. And I do have this, you know, I come from this like kind of feeling in my background where I like to think that it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is how you prove yourself, and a good community will foster better, you know, it'll foster a funnel for people to develop into really, really strong values, or I don't say assets, but essentially like people that can provide value back to the community. If you remove this, like, you know, like stigmas, like, oh, where do you come from? Or like, no, bro, like how many Bitcoins do you have or whatever, you know, but instead it's more like, okay, you say you have this idea, write it out, put it out there. Now let's see how it goes. And then, you know, if 6 months later, hey, this person's done a great job. This person's like being consistent. The community is benefiting from it. And again, this is like the way blockchain uses the word community, very different than the music industry. It's not, there's no real focus like that. It's interesting how that works, but like, I like that. I think that Near really does have that. And then the technology is awesome, you know, like carbon neutral, fast transactions, sharding, the developer fee, the gas fees, the guys behind it, the wallet.
Thank you, low gas fee.
Exactly.
We can actually create things.
Staking, you know, it's like, it's great. It's great. Near's, I'm really happy that I think it's a perfect solution to work with. It's a no-brainer to work with Near than to work with like PayPal or a bank. And it's a no-brainer to work with Near than to work with like Ethereum, in my opinion. So, yeah.
And what are your plans? What are your thoughts on the metaverse? How do you think having a space on the metaverse is making Tamago reach its objectives sooner? Or how do you feel that this makes everything go together in a better way?
Yeah, well, so with the metaverse, really, what the metaverse provides for people is two things, in my opinion. It's accessibility and community. Those are the two things that I see the real value. So a music application is really derived off of community. Music application thrives off of community, because without community, you just have like an empty shell. And when I talk about community now, it's a different way. Now we're going back to the music way of thinking about community, not the blockchain way. So what that really means is the culture, the art, right? Like the paintings you have behind you, like that's the culture. Like when I look at those graffiti paintings, each painting I look at has predominantly a lot of different features and things that if you're not part of the urban culture or you're not privy to those things, it'll go right past you, right? Like the scope of the work, the feeling of it, the color choices, the way that the angle of like the font, the structure of it, when you see that stuff, the message, like what's the message behind it, you know? Is it violent? Is it like intense? You know, is it like supposed to be brutal? or is it supposed to be in your face territorial, right? These things could mean nothing to people who aren't part of the culture. They'll have no idea. Right? Like a librarian who's been studying like some kind of like strange types of writing from a weird ancient civilization, look at a graffiti and go, all right, I don't know, like whatever. But vice versa, probably for a graffiti person there. But the culture matters again, because without the culture, there's nothing. And so what the metaverse provides is it provides an opportunity to foster community, because all of a sudden, you know, if you do events are a really big way, for example, to build community. And I love IRL events. And I also love, you know, virtual events. And so why limit if you're going to be in Brazil and I'm going to be in New York and we're doing an event in New York or we're doing an event in Brazil? Like, why not have an ability for people to still attend those events, right? If you're going to have a record store and you want to set up a record store in real life, why not set up a record store in the metaverse too? And you have people come into your, and they can be anywhere. All of a sudden, that real estate that you purchased, the value of that real estate, it goes up so much more in its utility compared to a traditional physical piece of real estate that you buy, because it's not mobile, it's stationary, and it can't, you know, you can't access it. Now, maybe with AR, you have some ways to kind of find a beneficial way to transverse that. But putting in the metaverse is a no-brainer, because then anybody from all over the world can go to your store, right? And that kind of value is priceless. And that for music also, it's very important. So community and accessibility. Accessibility is also very important. And I think for me, that's pretty important and I'm like excited to develop that more and work on it. Yeah.
Awesome. I was going to ask what you're working on now, but you said a bunch of, you can tell me, but you already told us a lot of spoilers about what's coming related to Tamago and Tama Island, but please.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. So what we want to do for the next 6 to 8 months is just develop the community, develop the application, get feedback, keep working on it. You know, we're dropping NFTs, we're dropping the Near wallet, that's coming up next. Tipping, the ability to tip, the ability to make NFTs. And then on the feature side, playlists we're looking at, and then more discovery development. And then on the event side, we're looking at doing a few, I don't know, I don't think spoilers. Now I don't want to say anything, but we have really, really exciting events that we're working on, bringing on some really cool artists, because by bringing on artists that you love, that have communities that belong to the artists, like fans, it makes a really big difference, because if you choose artists that really care about community building, artists that have been around for a while and they don't have to care about community building in the sense where it's not like, oh, are they really articulate and are they able to go out and talk to people? When I say that, what I mean is artists that have authenticity, which you notice right away, because you're like, this artist has been around for 20 years or 10 years or even a couple of years, or they're brand new, but there's something so honest and so important about what they're doing and so consistent that it's developed a world around it of people. And what's really cool about artists, if you kind of think about them, you can think about it in terms of mass. Like they're a planet, and then their mass is based off of that authenticity and what they attract, the debris in outer space that kind of surrounds that mass. It's like the fanship that kind of comes, and then the quality. Yeah, exactly. So but then you have the quality of fanship, right? Because you have artificial zones, right? You have these artificial zones where you'll have people that just blow up an Instagram, or you blow it up. It's really easy. If I wanted to, we could blow up the Tamago Twitter to 50,000 and have crappy bots on there and whatever, and it sucks. Nobody wants that. But that's the artificial blow up. But you have the organic blow up of artists that do it in a way where it's based off of what they're doing. And that, if you can connect into that world and really prove to those artists, prove to the communities around those artists, those festivals, those record labels, those publishers, those licensors, show them that you're doing something that fundamentally aligns with what they're doing and why it's beneficial for them, why it would be beneficial for you, why it would be beneficial for their fans. That's how you build a community that's really powerful, and that can really do things that can move the needle in a way that I don't think by going down the EDM route and getting like a huge big name and then just like coming out with a press release can give you personally. I'm not going to say who. I'm not trying to drop any names. I'm not saying, but yeah. So I mean, look, that's our attitude, and maybe you can say it's juvenile, but I think it's dope AF. And then finally, yeah. So we're still focusing on things that have relevance in terms of getting visibility out there, like building up Tamago, getting it like in the spotlight, and making people excited. But making people excited with communities of authenticity, then you're going to get more interesting people like you and Becopro. It's going to make better conversations, better ideas. It's going to feel better. So that's what we're looking at doing: more events, virtual events, real events, and then building the app. That's what we're working on.
We're dying to see your future Metaverse events. And just one few last words. What legacy would you like to leave for future creatives and builders, people who want to venture into this new world, brave new world?
What would I what would I say?
What legacy? What would you like to leave to people so they can build better things in the future? If you have this ambition.
I would say something that doesn't suck.
That's so honest. I love that.
I think that's all I got for that. But yeah.
If you could give some words of wisdom to those who are starting now, what would you say? You say that don't do stuff that suck.
Build something that doesn't suck. Yeah. And good luck.
Quote, build something that doesn't suck, by Clarian North.
A lot of hate on Reddit for that one, right? Dude, what are you saying? All right, cool. Well, thanks so much for having me, and I'm going to leave on that note. Yeah, why not? Gotta go. I'm kind of late, but I really enjoyed talking.
No problem. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you for your time.
You too. Okay. Bye.
See you on Tama Island.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.